Hello friends, welcome back to the channel NEET Biology Expert. I am Dr. Parveen. In this lecture series, we are studying Class 12 Biology Chapter Human Reproduction. In this particular lesson, we are going to study in detail about gastrulation and embryonic development. First, what is gastrulation? What is the definition for the word gastrulation? Gastrulation is the process during embryonic development that changes the embryo from blastula into gastrula. See, previously, in our previous lessons, we learned about what is fertilization and what is implantation, right? So, in the implantation, a ball of cells, that means a group of cells called blastocyst is formed, right? So, this blastocyst is the cell structure that goes and gets implanted in the uterus, endometrium. Okay, the formation of the blastocyst is called blastulation. So the blastocyst is also called as blastula, right? So now what happens after the blastocyst gets implanted? This blastocyst, they progress into the next structure that is called gastrula. Okay, now this process of formation of blastula to glastula, this is called as gastrulation, right? Okay, so here and another important thing is this blastula, that means the blastocyst is a single layer of cell, whereas this gastrula is a triple layer of cells. Okay, right? So gastrulation process occurs after the blastulation process. So here, when the gastrulation occurs, two important things occurs in this gastrulation. The first one is the differentiation of the blastomeres and the second one is the morphogenetic movement. What is differentiation of the blastomere? That means the blastocyst, the cells of the embryoblast in the blastocyst, it gets differentiated into three different germ layers. Okay, so they are called Ectoderm, Mesoderm and Endoderm. These three are the germ layers. From this germ layers only all the organs of the baby is growing to be developed. So the formation of these germ layers, this first step is called as differentiation of blastomere. Now the second step is morphogenetic movements. That means these are the different types of movements to reach their definite place in the embryo. The formed germ layers, they move in some definite position. Okay, so from that position only the embryo organs are going to develop. So after differentiation, so let me write here, the first step is the differentiation. Okay, so where the germ layers are formed. So after differentiation, the next step is the morphogenesis. Morphogenesis means the formation or the movement of the germ layers into their position. Okay, followed by this is the organogenesis. What is genesis? Genesis means formation, right? So what is going to be formed here? Organs. So from this germ layers, the different organs of the baby is going to be developed, right? Okay, so now let us understand how this gastrulation process and germ layer formation occurs using the pictures. Okay, look at this picture. This is the blastocyst or blastula. So let us first understand the basic structure of this blastocyst. So this is the blastocyst which gets implanted so far. Okay, so in the implantation, this structure only gets implanted in the endometrium wall. So here this blastocyst has two major things. So the inner group of around 20 to 30 number of cells are present inside. This structure is called inner cell mass or embryonic cells. Okay, so from the cells only the embryo is going to be developed. This blue color is the inner cell mass. Surrounding the inner cell mass, there is a single layer of flat cells. You could see this yellow color structure in this picture. This single layer of flat cells are called trophoblast cells. Trophoblast cells are the external layer of cells. Okay, so these are the two basic structures present in the blastocyst. Now, Inside the blastocyst, there is an empty hollow space that is called blastocyst cavity. So, in the blastocyst cavity, an uterine milk, liquid or fluid is present. So, that is called blastocyst, right? Now, what is going to happen when the blastocyst develops into gastrula? What happens? The first thing, the inner cell mass, also called as embryonic knob, will now become an embryonic disc. So see here, initially this inner cell mass, this is just a group of cells. Like means it is just irregularly arranged like this. Some group of 20 to 30 cells. Now these cells are going to arranged in a nice pattern. Okay, so that is called embryonic disc. So what happens here, this inner cell mass is getting differentiated into two distinct different layers. So one layer of the cells is the big columnar cell. So here we could see a big column like cells like this. The shape of the cells are like columns. Okay, this is the nucleus of the cells. So this column of cells are present at the upper region. Okay, so such cells are called as epiblast. Such cells are called as epiblast. So that is the first layer arranged. Okay, now the second layer is a single square shaped small cells. Okay, so this layer of cells is called as hypoblast. So here, for example, if this is the epiblast, okay, if this is the epiblast, here a small square shaped cells are differentiated. Okay, so this layer of cells is called hypo means below, right? So hypoblast cells. So these two cells now are differentiated from where? From the inner embryonic cell mass. Okay, so this is the first step occurs during the gastrulation. Now here the embryo is going to develop from which type of cells? The embryo will develop from only from the epiblast cells, right? So embryo develops from the epiblast cells, right? Now the second thing, what happens here, the lower small cuboidal cells, that is the hypoblast cells, are called as primitive endoderm cells. This is important. See here, this yellow color structure now, which is differentiated, we call this as hypoblast cells. These cells are called as primitive endoderm cells. Why? Because the first germ layer, endoderm, is going to be developed from this hypoblast cells. Okay. Now what happens? This hypoblast cells start divide and again, and they grow towards the blastocyst cavity like this. Okay, so it starts from dividing here and grows towards this blastocyst cavity, and they form the first germ layer, and this germ layer is now called as endoderm. Clear? So the endoderm is the first inner germ layer. Endo means inside, the first germ layer formed. So from where it is formed? It is formed from the hypoblast cells, right? Okay. So now it grows within the blastocyst and forms a yolk-like structure, a sac-like structure called yolk sac. So this area is going to be developed into yolk sac. This sac where the blastocyst cavity was there, no, that empty space is now going to be developed into yolk sac. Okay, this is the next step. Now, followed by this, what happens? The cells of Robber. We should know here special cells called cells of Robber. What is cells of Robber? So look at this picture here in this leftmost corner. Here in the blastocyst, okay, when we see the structure of the blastocyst, the region of the trophoblast which are in contact with the embryonic cells are called as cells of Robber. Cells of Robber, right? See, the embryonic in the blastocyst, the inner cells are called embryonic cells or cell mass. It is surrounded by a single layer of trophoblast, right? So the region where this trophoblast, they contact with the embryonic cells, this region of the trophoblast cells are called cells of Robber. These are also trophoblasts, but they are not in contact with the embryonic mass, so they are not called cells of robbers. Okay. Now what happens? This cells of robber now slowly starts to degenerate. When they degenerate, a gap is formed in this area. So that gap leads to a cavity called amniotic cavity. Right? So here in this picture, if the cells of robber are present here, when they degenerate, a gap is formed here. So this gap leads to the amniotic cavity. Okay, so as the embryo grows in size, the size of the amniotic cavity also expands. Okay, so the amniotic cavity is filled by a fluid called amniotic fluid. This amniotic fluid is secreted by both the growing embryo and also the outer trophoblast cells. Okay, so in the amniotic cavity only the embryo will float. It gives like a cushion like structure for the growing embryo. Right, now the next thing, what germ layer going to be formed is the ectoderm. So what is ectoderm? So see here, the cells of robber degenerated and it forms the amniotic cavity. There will be some remaining cells of robber here in the corners. Okay, so this cells of robber, which are the remaining cell mass in contact with the cells of robber, are called as the epiblast. The epiblast is the ectoderm, primitive ectoderm. Okay, right? So here see, already this epiblast, they divided and became hypoblast. Now again this epiblast divide and form another layer here. Okay, so this layer is now called as ectoderm. Ectoderm. So this ectoderm formed from where? Ectoderm formed from the epiblast cell. Okay, so this is the second germ layer to be formed, that is the epiblast cells. So the cells of the epiblast divide and redivide, moves and encloses the amniotic cavity. So for example, if epiblast is formed here, they divide like this and they close this complete amniotic cavity like this. So this is the now this is the ectoderm layer. Clear? Okay, so let us understand some more detail using this picture. So see this picture. Okay, so we could see all the germ layers. First germ layer formed is the endoderm. So now this yellow color is the endoderm. That is the first germ layer, which continues below as the yolk sac. Okay, so this is the first germ layer. Second germ layer formed from the epiblast cells is the ectoderm here. This is the ectoderm, second germ layer, which covers completely the amniotic cavity. Right? Now, in between the ectoderm and the endoderm, the cells which are present in the center, they divide again and form the third germ layer, that is the mesoderm. Mesoderm. So where mesoderm is present here, the mesoderm is the third germ layer which is present in between the ectoderm and the endoderm. Right. So here another important thing happens here. That means in the epiblast, a shallow groove is formed. See here, this is the epiblast. These blue cells are epiblast, right? So in the epiblast, a groove. What is groove? Groove means a depression. Like this, a depression is formed. Okay, a shallow groove is formed, that is called primitive streak. That is called primitive streak. So this primitive streak is a very important structure in a growing embryo, because this primitive streak is essential to maintain the bilateral symmetry. What is bilateral symmetry? See, take our body. Okay, so we have been formed from the embryo like this process only, right? So when these layers are formed, this primitive stick occurs. So what is the function of the primitive stick? It is essential to maintain the bilateral symmetry. For example, take our body like this. So when we cut our body, it will be equal in both the sides. This is bilateral symmetry. We have two nostrils, two eyes, two ears, okay, and right side, left side chest, two hands, two extremities, everything two equally. So So this equal division, where whatever our body produces, grows, it happens in both the sides, right? Both the right side and left side, right? So this balanced multiplication of the cells, everything occurs because of this primitive stick, because the cells start divide and it is equally distributed in both the right and left side. Okay, so to maintain this bilateral symmetry, this primitive stick is important in the growing embryo, right? So from the primitive stick, the third layer cells called mesoderm extends between the ectoderm and the endoderm. So mesoderm forms between the ectoderm and the endoderm, right? Right. So far we have seen the three germ layers, how it formed. That is gastrulation and the production of the differentiation of the blastomeres. The next step is the organogenesis. What is organogenesis? Formation of organs from these germ layers. So after gastrulation, each germ layer gives rise to specific tissues, organs and organ system. So this is called organogenesis, right? So see, in our body, our complete body has been formed from these three germ layers only. Okay, so this is called fate of germ layers. So what is fate of germ layers? Now the embryo has three germ layers: ectoderm, mesoderm and endoderm. The fate of this germ layers is already decided. That means which germ layer has to grow into which organ, that is already fixed. Accordingly only it will grow. There will be no change at any cost. Okay, so see here the first one. From the ectoderm, the epidermis of the skin, the sweat glands, hair follicles, everything grow. Similarly, epithelial lining of the mouth, anus and cornea and the lens of the eye, an important system called nervous system, right? So like this, these things develop from the ectodermal germ layer. Similarly, from the mesoderm, important skeletal system, muscular system, okay, excretory system, circulatory and lymphatic system, like this important organ systems, they develop from the mesoderm layer. That means the middle layer. And endoderm, the inner layer. From the endoderm layer, some organs like liver, pancreas, thymus, thyroid, parathyroid, like this. Okay, so this table is almost same in present in everywhere. Okay, so see here, another important thing what we should understand is, for example, take adrenal gland. You know adrenal gland. So adrenal gland is a small gland which is present over the kidney, right? Like this. Okay. So this adrenal gland has two layers: external cortex and inner medulla. This inner medulla is formed from the ectoderm, whereas you see here the external cortex is formed from the mesoderm. Okay. Like this, within one organ or within one system, there will be variations. Okay, see another example. Epidermis is the outer layer of the skin. Epidermis of the skin develops from the ectoderm, whereas the dermis of the skin develops from the mesoderm. So like this, the fate of every organ, every tissues are already determined from which germ layer which organ has to be produced, right? Okay. Now let us go to the next part of the embryonic development. Here we call something called gestation period. What is a gestation period? The human pregnancy which lasts about 280 days or 40 weeks. This duration is called as gestation. Gestation means pregnancy period. So what is the duration for it varies with every species, you know that, right? So for a human being, the pregnancy period is 280 days or equivalent to 40 weeks. Okay, so this gestation period, we divide this into 3 trimester. So the first trimester lasts for 0 to 12 weeks, the second trimester lasts for 13 to 28 weeks, and the third trimester lasts for 29 to 40 weeks. So during this trimester only, the embryo grows slowly and it develops into a baby. Okay, so these changes, all these changes occurs during this trimester slowly. So let us see what happens. In the first trimester, you know which organ develops first in a baby? The first organ develops is the heart. This is very important. So the heart is the first organ develops. Okay. So first trimester is the main period of organogenesis where important organs slowly develops in the first trimester. That means in the first 1 to 3 months period. Okay. So structures like heart, limbs means extremities. Okay. Hand, toes like this develops. Lungs, liver, genital organs, gonads, all this develops in the first trimester. And during the second trimester, that means 4th month to 6th month, face is formed. So previously the embryo will be like this without any peculiar shape. Now the face formed with the eyes, ears, like this, everything. Okay. The face is well developed with features. Eyelids, eyelashes, everything occurs. The baby blinks, the embryo blinks, and the body is covered with hairs, muscles, tissues, bones, everything now becomes developed and becomes stronger. Okay, so this happens during the second trimester. And third trimester, all the organs grows further, and now the fetus is fully developed and now it is ready for delivery or parturition. Okay, so these are the changes which occurs in the trimesters. Understand? So I hope you understand this lecture. Our next lecture will be about parturition. That means how delivery process occurs. If you like this lecture, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel NEET Biology Expert. Thank you.